Thank you for choosing to listen to this message. At Coastal, we believe in changing and enriching lives through the power of the Word. We pray that this sermon would be a blessing to you.
In this on Wednesday night in this series of Exodus from Egypt to the Promised Land. That's the event. From Egypt to the Promised Land, and it's called in the Bible. It's called Exodus, and of course you have the book of Exodus. Okay, but we're not doing the book of Exodus. We're doing the event. Okay, and tonight it is, where are you going? That's the question for tonight. The first one was, how did you get here? Okay, and have you got that Egypt is a picture of man that's not saved? That's what Egypt is. Egypt is a place where you're in bondage. Okay, literally here to Pharaoh, but in bondage to sin, or in bondage to anything. Okay, you're not saved. You need to be saved. Okay, all right. Now they got there, and then the second one was, what do we do while we're here? They spent 400 years there. They didn't know how long they were going to be there, but they spent 400 years there, and in 400 years, you ought to at least do something. You know, even if it's wrong, you ought to at least do something. Okay, and we talked about all the things that they could do to make good use of their time, and then after that is, how do we get out of here? Okay, and we started talking about getting across those lines. Okay, so I got 3 lines on here. 2 of them blue and 1 of them's red. So the first line you want to cross, if you're here, we get out of here. Moses is the leader. I understand that. Okay, he's the liberator. Okay, but he's delivering a message from God, and God says about the Passover, which is the blood, which would speak of. You can actually say that. You can say that here. Okay, what? Yeah, yeah. Him dying on the cross for us. He becomes the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. And that's the way, especially in the book of John, that's the way he is portrayed, okay, in the book of John. So the first line you want to get across is the Passover, which is the blood. So you come out under the blood. And the next line is water, which is the Red Sea. You have to get across the Red Sea, okay? The water, blood, and the water, and then you're in the desert, okay? And as soon as you get in the desert, the big question is, where are you going? Oh, by the way, let's get some of our stuff out now. Okay, this is, and you ought to get a new sheet for tonight. Okay. Keep your notes, but the readings for next week is on this sheet. Okay, so yeah, okay, and so all right, yeah. So you want to make sure you get that. Let's see what you got there. Okay. Yeah. And you want new sheets for tonight because the text is on there for next Wednesday night. We got you. Yes, I do. Because once is that I got a couple more. Okay. Because once you get out, once you cross over those 2 lines, and no matter where you are, there's a line. And on one side of that line, you have a better chance of success than you do on the other side of the line. So if you're in Egypt and you want to go to the Promised Land, your first step is to get across those lines there. Under the blood and through the water, and you're in the desert. Once you're in the desert, where are you going? Where are you going? And we'll talk about that. That's the number one question for tonight. Where are you going? Oh, this will be on the test. Matter of fact, this is the test. Okay? They come out of Egypt under the blood, through the water. They get on the other side, and the water closes back. There are at least 3 things that happened when that water closed. Can you tell me 1, 2, or 3 things that happened once that water closed? No way back. You don't want to listen to anybody talk about going back, and they do that all the time, but they're not going back. That's why God doesn't even consider it at all. They can't get back. Number 1, can't get back. Number 2, I'm sorry. The enemy is completely gone. The enemy, as far as they're concerned, does not exist any longer. That is completely over. And how about number 3? I'm sorry? Ooh, how good. Yes. For the first time in 400, for the first time in 400 years, they will get to choose their own destiny. And that they will. Okay? They will choose their own destiny. Now that they're here, they can make decisions. They don't have Pharaoh to make decisions for them anymore. They'll be able to make this decision for themselves. So the question is, where are you going? Now, the promised land is not very far away from Egypt to the promised land, okay? Not very far away geographically. But psychologically and spiritually, it is light years from where they are when they stand there on the bank. Okay? And we don't want to minimize that in any way, shape, or form. But it's a long ways to get there. Okay, let's see. Nice, but I'd be looking at the right paper, wouldn't it? Numbers 13 and 14. Numbers 13 and 14. They are right on the edge of the promised land. Okay? Numbers 13 and 14. They're right on the edge. Kadesh Barnea. They are only 2 years out of Egypt. Okay? And they're right on the edge of the promised land. And the first introduction we have of what they're doing is, number 1, they send out spies. They send out a spy from each tribe, and there are 12 tribes, so they send out 12 spies to spy out the land. Okay? All right. And the spies come back and report their 26 and following. 27 is, we went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey, just like you said. Okay? And milk, now milk and honey is a way to talk about a very good land. What do you think milk symbolizes? Nourishment. Honey. Very good. Prosperity. Very good. Sweet to the taste. Yeah, amen. Prosperity. Okay? So the land is not only will provide sustenance, it will provide goodness to you. Okay? So they found that the land did flow with milk and honey. And they said, here is the fruit. They brought back fruit, a cluster of grapes that were carried by two men on a pole. I don't know what painting that was that I looked at, but I've never forgotten it. Okay, it's in my mind. It's almost like Cecil B. DeMille's for crossing the Red Sea, you know. Uh, and what happened after they gave that honest and factual report? What did they start doing? Why did they want to go? Eh, yeah. And the cities are walled and strong and all that kind of thing. So we don't think we can do this. Now, out of the 12 people that left, that's what 10 of them were saying. There are 2 people that are in that group that brought back a good report and said, we can do this, and that's Joshua and Caleb. I think Joshua is not mentioned right off. I think Caleb is. And by the way, if you're reading kind of one of the older Bibles, his name in the list of spies is spelled with an H, Hashua. Okay, but that's pretty common. Okay, but that's Joshua there. Okay, if you read it that way. All right. And so here, Caleb, it said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Confidence, ready to go, gave a good report, and it's time to do something about this. Okay, it's important where you're going. Caleb knew where he was going. He was going to the promised land. Joshua knew where he was going. He was going to the promised land. These other guys were confused and didn't really know where they're supposed to be going, and therefore the task is too difficult ahead. Okay? All right. So we read on with that, and then we get down to the last verse. Joan. Yes. They can't. There's nobody else to depend on other than God. And I cannot impress upon you too much to let them tell you who they are. Let us stop telling them who they are and listen to them and let them tell you who they are and where they want to go. Now, if you were listening to them all through here, up to 2 years now, okay, you were. All right. Chapter 14. 10 vote no, don't go in. 2 vote yes. And so they decide that they're not going to go. All right? Verse 1 of chapter 14. That night, all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. Now, I want to remind you that every one of them got what they wanted, not to go. But now they're weeping profusely and wailing in the night. And I want you to work on why they're doing that. And go over again, where are they? They're here, the edge of the promised land. And they just decided what? Not to go. And they want to go back to Egypt. And somebody already said, what about going back to Egypt? Somebody already said that. You can't get back to Egypt. You got it? You can't get back to Egypt. That puts them in total frustration because they're caught between a land they refuse to go into and a land they cannot go back to. The only thing that's left for them is what? The desert. If you refuse to move from where you are, you have to die where you're at. You understand that? Okay, Tom. Let me press you a little bit like I did Diane. Why don't they want to fight? Do these men have testosterone? Thank you, Joanne. I'm glad you got that. And I'm worried I'm not up to the task ahead of me. I'm worried that I'm not up to the task ahead of me. And my wanter is not strong enough that I don't want it bad enough. Have you? That's just around the corner. That question is just around the corner. You got there a little bit ahead of me. Okay. And the bottom line is, are you hungry? Are you hungry? Do you want it bad enough or don't you? Now, we're going to talk a little bit later about where we're going and that kind of thing. All right. But that just applies, but it applies to any goal. Do you want it bad enough or not? How hungry are you? Like the man said, I'm hungry. I was born hungry. Yeah. And one of those guys like that is Caleb. Okay? All right. Now, why are they wailing and crying here? Oh, we just went over that. Come on. No, that's what they want. They want to go back. What's wrong with that plan? They can't get back. God's not going to part the Red Sea for them to get back to Egypt. It's over with. That ship has already sailed. Okay. And there's giants in the land, and they will not go in and fight for them. They will not go in and fight. So what's left for them? Total frustration. Total frustration. And that's the way you are in your life. If you've come some distance, amen. Obviously, we've gotten out of Egypt, haven't we? We come across the blood, amen. Lord died for us, saved us. We've been through the baptismal waters. And now, where are we going? Should be going to the promised land. And if we won't go, what does that leave for you? The desert. The only thing left for you if you will not go. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. We're trying to do that now, Joey. We're trying to salt the oats now. That was good. I like that. And I never thought about that. That was good. All right. And you, well, go ahead, Joey. Yeah. Oh, I see. I see where you went with that. Yeah. Yeah. And until you're tasked with really wanting to go someplace, okay, until you're tasked with that, you'll never know that experience that Joey just mentioned there. Until you need strength that is beyond you to do the task ahead of you, then you'll never know that experience, okay? And you'll never know of what you can be until you have that task out of, as one guy said, if your goal doesn't scare you to death, your goal is too small. And it's not challenging. And that the goal that does not scare you is not good enough to get you up in the morning without an alarm clock. But when you're hungry, you'll wake up and you're ready to get up when you're hungry. If you ain't, just stay in bed, pull the covers up over your head, and hope things are all right, okay? But they won't be. All right? This is a good time to do that. I think it's in Revelation 21. Boy, we're going through the whole Bible then when we do that, ain't we? Verse 8. I cannot tell you what this did to me when I read it for the first time. I think it was in this book here, The Theology of Hope by Jürgen Moltmann. I think, because he mentions this text when it comes to the promise, or when it comes to hope. And here in verse 8, 21:8, you have a list of all the people who are going to spend eternity in hell. Okay? What's the number one first thing of people in hell? The fearful, the coward. If you want to make your life a living hell, just be a coward. Be fearful. And you'll make your life a living hell. Even before the unbelieving, before the vile, before the murderers, before the sexual immoral people, or those who have practiced magic arts, idolatry, before all of them, the fearful is the first ones. The cowards that go there. Practice your courage. Practice your courage. When it comes to the book of Joshua, when the first chapter in the book of Joshua says, be courageous. Don't be dismayed. A couple verses later, be courageous. Don't be dismayed. A couple verses later, be courageous. Don't. This land belongs to the brave. This land belongs to God's people who will act like that. In one of the readings I had, it said, take your place. Nobody's going to give you that place. You have to take your place. So where are you going? Let's go to Matthew 7. I think it's Matthew 7. Ask, and it will be given you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. So what are you going to find? I'm going to tell you in a minute what you're going to find. You're going to find exactly what you're looking for. Because if you seek it, you will find it. You'll find exactly what you're looking for. So when you ask the question in the desert here, where are you going? That's all important. Once you get out of Egypt, once you make the cross under the blood, through the sea, and you get into the desert, it's important about where you're going because that's where you're going to wind up. What are you talking about? What do you seek? That's where you're going to go. Because you will find exactly what you're looking for. Now, I've been working on this now for a couple of years, okay? I want to live in the promises of God. That's where I want to live. And a few years ago, I made a commitment. Matter of fact, I name every year, okay? And I named the year the year of promise. And what I was working on, I'm still working on it, by the way, was that I would live in the promises of God. That's where I want to live. That's what I'm looking to do. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I desire. And I'm assured that that's exactly what I will find. Okay? I haven't got this all nailed down yet, but that's what I'm looking for. Seek and you will find. You will find exactly what you're looking for. Have you ever noticed that when you're driving a car, and my wife says, "Oh, look over there. There's a house or something." And pretty soon I'm looking at that. And what direction do I start going? Hey, have you noticed that? You'll go exactly where you're looking. That's where you're headed. And the writer of Hebrews knew this when he said, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Because if you're looking to Jesus, well, what are you going to turn into? You're going to be just like him. If that's what you're looking at. If that's where you're going. And that's where you're going if you're looking there. Okay? That's in running the race. Run the race that is set out before you, looking unto Jesus, author and finisher of our faith. Okay? So, it's all important for you to answer the question of where you're going. And you love yogiisms. I love yogiisms. Yogi says this: if you don't know where you're going, how in the world would you know it when you get there? Isn't that brilliant? That is just absolutely brilliant. I wish I'd have thought of that. Right? If you were up here at Jacksonville Harbor and you would stop a ship captain and a ship that was just ready to leave the harbor, and you would ask him, "Well, where are you going?" "Oh, I'm just going out there somewhere." Have you ever talked to Christians like that? "I'm just waiting for the Lord to lead me." Where are Gary? There. Who started that? Tom, I think, started that. That's a good one. So there you are. Okay. And here we are. here we are. Okay, where are we going to go now? What are we going to do now? So it's important that you have. Oh, by the way, if you ask the captain, he would probably be able to tell you in 3 or 4 words exactly where he's headed. And he'll probably get there. And that's what you need to do with your life. You need to talk about where you want to go, okay? Now, I know things, friend of mine, and we were, who was it? Oh, I think it was Tom when we had coffee last week. How many of you drove, you and I, drove a tractor or a car that did not have power steering? What was power steering when we were young then? Okay. Isn't it true that if you just get that car or tractor moving just a little bit, that thing becomes awful easy? That's exactly the way we are. If you'll get off the dime, instead of sitting on your blessed assurance and start standing on the promises, everything will change for you. Everything will change for you. And even if you're started off in the wrong direction, you don't get everything right the first time. You start, and then the Lord will gently take you another direction. And when you need correction, I was really wanting to do this with airplane, automatic pilot. That's why I talked to John. I really didn't get a chance to follow up on that. Okay, but let's say you're going from L.A. To Hawaii, and no, don't say that. And Hawaii is like this little bitty speck out there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, okay? And you're out there, but you got automatic pilot. You got automatic pilot working for you, okay? And you get off course, and it'll bring you back. And you get off course, and it'll bring you back. How much would you be off course, and how much would you be on course in that trip from LA to Hawaii? A lot. You'd be off course a lot. Go ahead. Uh, and I had the same thing when I first started preaching because, people want to tell you, you don't need to write a sermon out. You don't need to do that. Just trust for the Lord to inspire you, okay? I found out that's not a good plan. Okay. I found out that's not a good plan, okay? And the thing you have to realize then is God is active and vital in you while you're writing that sermon as he is in the delivering of it, okay? It's helpful. I actually developed a kind of a saying that when I would sit down to write, I would write a sermon for Sunday morning, and then I'd write the date, the time, and pretty soon, yeah, then you start working on it. Okay. Sure. You're right. Yeah, I was on there just because you get off course. It doesn't mean anything bad because you're going to get back on. But you're right. you're not even going to set that course until you have, make the movement until you have trust in that course or in that equipment. You're right. And you'll only learn that by living it. Yeah. And when you just use the word relax is what I'm looking for when I trust the promises, when I learn to live in the promises of God and the promises that He's given me. You start relaxing and life becomes much more enjoyable. Okay? %, Joan. 100%, yeah. And this is a well-known study. That's a well-known study. If you take a youngster and throw him in the swimming pool, he'll probably learn how to swim. But go ahead. Yeah. That's right. Amen. I want to, before we leave this idea, I want us to do Philippians, wonderful little book. Chapter 2, verse 13. For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose. If you're reading the King James, it's to will and to do. So be assured. Let's say you take this teaching tonight. Say you take this seriously, and you said, I want to figure out the direction of my life. Be assured that when you sit down and work on that God is at work in you to will it. And then once it's been willed, that is, once you've committed to it, once you say, this, I'm committed to this, He'll be in the act as well. He will be helping you in the act as well. So the moment you leave Egypt, the moment you get through the water, you should set your sights on the promised land. And when somebody asks you where you're going, I'm going to the promised land. Well, what about, go ahead, Kathy. "20 years old and older. 20 years old and older. If they were old enough to vote, they died in the desert. Thank you. Now, let's go back to Numbers and verse 10. I'll take a couple more minutes, okay, for us to get this. 14, I'm sorry, Numbers 14, verse 10. The whole assembly talked about stoning Moses. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Now think about that. Now I'm serious. Just think objectively about that. Some people just came back and said, we can't fight them people over there. Strike fear in all these people, and these people are afraid to go too. Well, boy, we can stone them guys. We'll fight them. We'll kill him. Just think about that. They're unwilling to fight the enemy, but their best friend here and the sharpest tools in the shed, they're saying, no, we'll kill them. Now, you tell me how to help them. That's where God just gives up on them. Okay? He's going to do away with them. How long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe me? In spite of all the miraculous signs I have performed among them, I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them, but I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they. Moses, I'm going to give you a break here. I'm going to kill all of them and raise you another nation, and we'll see how they do. Now, we're going to read further. Okay. Moses is going to be the high priest, and he's going to go to bat with God for the people. Moses has made a lot of mistakes in his life, but this is not one of them. This one is filled with compassion. This one is filled with love, and he's going to argue with God with what God just told him. And Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power you brought these people from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are with these people, and that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stays with them, that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And if you put these people to death all at one time, now see, God was thinking about killing everyone. Moses knew it. Going to kill every one of them just like one man. Everyone. Everyone. The nations who have heard this report about you will say, the Lord was not able to bring these people into the land he promised them on oath, so he slaughtered them in the desert. What's Moses' argument with God? What's his argument? People will hear that you were not able, O Lord, to do this. And the Lord changes his mind and softens his approach. And did you ever think about arguing with God? Do you? Well, Moses won somewhat. Okay, it may not be a great victory, but Moses won pretty good here. And he made his argument and won pretty good here. Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't have answers to those. Okay. Yeah, I don't have answers to those. Okay, but I do know that he understood God going to kill them like one man, all at one time, and he argues, don't do that. Give them a break. You're loving you're uh, suffering. You forgive, and you're a Lord of love and mercy. Now you can practice that here on these people, and sure enough, he does, or at least he softens his approach to them. Okay. All right. I think that'll about do it for tonight. Okay. When you're in here, and by the way, I find that I fluctuate. Sometimes, some days I'm really in the promises, and other times I'm not. Okay, I find myself fluctuating there. Okay, and there's no rule about going across back and forth across the Jordan. Okay, but this one here now, there's a rule against that. You can't get back here. Okay, all right. But when you're in the desert, where are you going? I'm going to the promised land. I got a simple, short, concise answer. Where are you going? I'm going to the promised land. And when you're living in the promises of God, this is where I want to stay. This is where I want to stay. Okay. Don't let fear or intimidation hold you. And make sure that you know where you're going. So I signed up for boot camp. Okay, this has been a few years ago, and it was a gentle boot camp. I mean, it wasn't really boot camp. Okay, but that's what they call it. And the leader was this nice, really nice young lady. And I thought there'd be a whole bunch of us show up. There was only a couple of people showed up for this. Okay, and she asked me, says, well, what is it you want to do here in boot camp? And I had three things. I said, well, I want to develop my aerobics. So I want to be able to run a little bit, do a little bit better with my running. And I want to deal with my strength, get some strength and some tone to my muscles. And then I want to work on my balance and agility. Well, she said, okay. And so we started boot camp. Now, this was like several years later. I saw her. Well, we became friends over that, okay? I mean, yeah, she's got a baby. Oh, yeah, she just really, her life blossomed and bloomed, and yeah, just a great young woman. Great young woman. She told me later, you're the only one in all the time I spent with boot camp and training that actually showed up with goals to do. Let me tell you, if you know where you're going as best you can, now don't start that, okay? As best you can, you are among the 10% of the most successful people in life. And especially if you've written them down someplace and have them written someplace where you can read them once in a while. Only about 10% of the population will have written goals. And you should, when you have, where are you going? You should have an answer. It's almost like Jesus and Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus, screams out, oh, Lord, 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 David, have mercy on me. And finally, Jesus gives him an audience, says, bring him over here, bring him over here. And Jesus says to him, what is it you want me to do for you? You got a short, concise answer, you'll get it. Okay? You say, well, I don't know, Lord. Well, okay, somebody else come over here. What did Bartimaeus say? I want to receive my sight. Simple, concise goal, which he started screaming about over there on the curb. I love preaching about Bartimaeus, okay? I tell people, get off the curb and join the parade. Come on. Get off that curb and join the parade. All right. Where are you going? You get an answer. Good. Get an answer. Doesn't have to be the only answer. Doesn't have to be the best answer. But you do have to have an answer. Okay? Because you'll probably hit it. And if that's not, tomorrow if you get up and you say, well, I'm going to change it. I go, good idea. Just change it. They got erasers on pencils for that. Just erase it and write you down a new one. Yeah. And pretty soon, the Lord will guide you to what you ought to be about and what you ought to be doing. But you ought to know where you're going. Okay? Now, what do you have to become to get there is for next week. Okay? And we'll work on that next week. All right? Do we have something we're going to do tonight? Okay. I have a couple of people in mind to really pray for. All right? Not the least of which is my grandson and my son-in-law and daughter. Okay? But things are going, seems like they're going real good. He's getting on a jet tomorrow to take him from Billings. That's how good he's doing. Okay, they're going to put him on a jet, a med jet, and then take him to Denver, Colorado, where he's going to go into rehab at Craig Center. This is supposed to be a really good place for him to go. But he's up with a walker. He's going to the bathroom on his own with a walker, and so yes, we're feeling really good about that. But we'll continue to pray, especially for Mom and Daddy. Yeah, I could not be more proud of my daughter and my son-in-law. They have been monsters. Isn't that wonderful? They just been monsters. And I couldn't be prouder of them, okay? And as soon as the dust settles, Joan and I will probably be headed out and go see him. Oh, he called me to make sure I had his telephone number in the room, and so I got to talk to him on the phone. Yeah, and Joan and I talked to him. I bet like 6-8 minutes. Yeah, he had problem focusing, but if you ask him something, he was pretty much there. So, amen. So I want to